Mm-hmm. Interesting. I want to buy some better equipment.
Music to my ears. What did you have in mind?
Now would you look at that? I want
music to my ears. What did you have in mind?
Let's see. I want
music to my ears. What did you have in mind?
Tahar, what is it?
There's one thing.
Good question. I guess it all...
Yes.
Exactly. And there was this one moment when he found the 5th tome, when I came to a realization. You see, there were all those bodies. Enemies, but also many of our people. We had shed so much blood, Tahar. So much blood for our cause. But Isamo, he didn't care. If there was any grief in his eyes, I couldn't see it. And as dramatic as it may sound, that's when I finally understood that we had lost our cause. This wasn't about ideals, about us mages anymore. It was about him. Whatever his intentions had become.
And that's the reason Zane, Helena, and I betrayed him. Come on, do you really want to tell us you didn't see that before? The tomes were all about power.
No, you misunderstand. I knew it was about power. But Isamo always told us that he would use that power for the greater good. And it's not that far off. I mean, can't you imagine? With the power of the tomes, we could have united the world. Even made it a better one. No more persecution of the deviant. No more wars. No more suffering.
You mean an aristocracy, with a couple of mages playing God?
There's always someone playing God. And honestly, don't you think the world would have been a better place if there were gods who actually cared? Who involved themselves in politics? I do. But be that as it may, what we can be certain of is that the world the Purity is envisioning would be a far worse one than anything us mages could have ever created. They must be stopped at all costs.
I'll be off. Interesting.
Yes, Corporal? How can I help?
Well, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. How did you become an assassin?
Why do you want to know?
No particular reason, I suppose. I'm just curious.
Huh. I see. In short, my mother sold me. And after an incident, my owner noticed my talents. He started to train me to carry out jobs for him. And when I was 17, he had an accident. I've been an independent assassin ever since.
Your mother sold you? But where? Why?
Because she needed the coin, and already had 4 children to feed. And as for your first question, where there is demand, there is a market. Particularly in a big city like Greyfell. It's not as uncommon as you might believe.
You're saying there's a slave market in Greyfell?
Slaves, sex, murdering for pleasure. Just imagine every dark desire you can think of. And you know what the Greyfell Bazaar has to offer. I find it interesting that this surprises you. Didn't you serve in the Royal Army for 8 years?
I only joined shortly before the Mage Wars started, and the Greyfell affairs were the responsibility of the Greyfell Guard. I just didn't know.
Well, now you do. I do not agree with the purity of light in most aspects. But they are right when they say there are many sinners in this world. If you believe in the concept of sin, that is.
Even if she needed the money, that's despicable.
Well, to her credit, she didn't take it lightly. At least as far as I can remember. I was only 7 when that happened.
That doesn't make it better. How do you feel about this? Your mother selling you off?
Well, I used to feel strongly about it. Now I've simply accepted it as part of my past. But there are plenty of reasons for that.
That's quite the story.
Is it?
So, who is this man who bought you?
I won't talk about that. This chapter of my past is done, and I want it to stay buried.
To me, that sounds like you're hiding something.
I am. But it should be of no relevance to you. So, tell me, Pariah, how did you become the betrayer's child in the first place? It's rare for a child to defy their own father.
He lost his vision. When he started the rebellion, it was about the safety of mages, but he became more and more radical. I just couldn't stand by and watch anymore.
That's admirable. Well, thank you for sharing this with me. Either way, is there anything else you need?
Huh?
Can you tell me more?
And why's that? Thinking about
It's certainly a power...
Well, the moment you start most people...
Let's start with the big...
It's simple. Take a devourer. Once you...
Interesting.
Sure.
Best you talk to my...
Oh, So, the only thing we need to ask of you is a small donation every time we craft something for you. I know, you saved our lives, but we still need to cover for the material.
No problem. I'll make sure to drop by from time to time.
Splendid. Nihal strength, Corporal.
Axes, daggers, swords, everything for the weary traveler. May Tiara bless your path.
What is it?
I would like...
Well, if you have the coin, I might be able to help. Let's see. What is it? Well, if you have the coin, I might be able to help. Let's see.
How are you holding up?
Fine, I guess. Thanks for asking. You know, Corporal, I've been meaning to ask you something.
Yes?
Well, not knowing your mother and all that shit your father put you through. Do you ever feel lost?
Yes, I do.
I figured. You know, I haven't told you that yet, but actually our pasts aren't so different. Save for the fact that my father didn't try to conquer the world, at least not that I know.
How are our pasts alike then?
Simply put, I also didn't know my mother. And my father was a bastard if there ever was one.
What happened to your mother?
She died giving birth to me.
I'm sorry.
It's alright. As I said, I never knew her.
I take it you and your father aren't on good terms then?
You are of great wisdom, Tahar. No, we were not. I was and still am the only heir of the family, and if there's anything my father ever cared about, it was prestige. You see, it might not be obvious, but I'm actually of noble blood. Pure blood, as Finn and Mir elves call it. Nothing impressive, small nobility. You know, similar to the kind of Nortander nobility that's always around at royal festivities, licking everyone's boots so that they just don't forget about them.
There's nobility in Finn and Mir?
Oh, yes there is. They don't call it that, but essentially Finn and Mir is an aristocracy.
How so?
Well, as you might know, elven culture heavily revolves around the White Tree, a gift from their goddess Ellen. Simply put, the tree is revered and guarded by a group of mages, of seers, called the Council. They're the rulers of our country, 6 women and 6 men. Now, according to the ancient lore, when a seer dies, his or her successor is chosen by the Council. However, it has become custom that a seer should be replaced by someone from his bloodline. Someone pure, as they call it.
Which means they make sure that the power stays within the right families.
Indeed. And even though elven families in themselves are small, if you count all the cousins, aunts and uncles, the members of just one council family could populate a whole township. In other words, the closer your blood ties with the council, the closer you are to the White Tree. And thus, the higher your standing.
So I assume your father put you under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I barely had a childhood. It was all stern-faced teachers instead, trying to feed me language, history, math, and magic from the day I could speak. And I can't even remember all those festivities and religious ceremonies I had to attend. It was as if I learned the meaning of the word small talk before I learned how to ask for my mother's teat. Not that she would have been around to listen.
How about friends?
Oh, that's another topic. I was allowed to go out and play as long as it was with the right people. Still, I didn't, which was my choice, really. One of the few I made in those years. I preferred to stay on my own.
How come?
I don't know. See, I've always felt a bit ahead of others. As you know, we think in other dimensions than you do. Our lives are a lot longer. What that means is that an elf who has seen 20 winters is still considered and looks like a child. Thus behaves as such. I just never felt at home with most people, especially around my age. and that feeling never changed.
What was your father hoping to gain from this?
Isn't it obvious? He wanted to marry me off, and thus expand our petty little family's prestige.
If he simply wanted to arrange a marriage for you, then why teach you magic, maths? When these things happen in Nortander, it's usually more about, how shall I put it?
The looks?
And the ancestry, yes.
Well, these things play a big role in Finn and Mir too, but to be considered a good match, education and magical talent are just as important. For a priest, let alone a pure blood, to be seen with an uneducated, non-gifted street elf is frowned upon, not to say forbidden. Also, from what I've learned, it's mostly young women and girls who get married off in Nortander, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, this isn't the case in Finn and Mir. If the head of a family decides to do so, a young boy or a young man may have the same fate as the one I just escaped by a hair's breadth. But this is a topic you could fill books with. Probably not for now.
But it never came to that?
Almost.
I see. Where is your father now?
Dead as a doornail. He got assassinated some years before I was allowed into the priesthood.
Assassinated? What happened?
He got mistaken for someone else. But it doesn't really matter. Let's not talk about it.
Sounds like he got what he deserved.
I don't believe people get what they deserve. They get whatever life or the Guardians bothered to give them. Murderers live to be 100. Children die in the birthbeds. Ultimately, the biggest fallacy is that we like to believe that there's someone who gives a damn. We're on our own, and we have to make the best out of whatever life throws at us. I did. And even though not all worked out as I had planned, I'm here. And I'm free.
But the Guardians are real.
I never said that they weren't. But tell me one thing. Why is there cruelty when there's Shanna? Why is there injustice when there's Arian? Why do children die when there's Ellen? There are two explanations. Number one, the Guardians are far less powerful than we think. Number two, they just don't give a damn.
I couldn't agree more.
Happy to hear that. The gods aren't the answer. Yeah, every once in a while there's the token miracle healing. The chances of your prayers being answered are next to none. So you can either sit on your buttocks hoping that some god will take pity, or you can take your fate into your own hands.
But you still feel lost sometimes, don't you?
Yeah, I do. But I'm working on it. Anyway, we digressed quite a bit, didn't we? Sorry, my fault. Sometimes I just talk too much. I'll see you around, Tahar. And thanks for listening.
Huh? How did you become a shapeshifter?
I was chosen.
And how does that work?
Complicated. Are you sure you want to hear the whole story? Time isn't exactly on our side.
It isn't, but the more I know about your abilities, the better. You're fighting for me, after all.
We're not fighting for you, Tahar. We are fighting alongside each other. That's a big difference.
Alongside, then.
Good. Let's make it short, then. Shapeshifting is a gift of Zarg. One that only the best of his shamans are granted.
And how does one become a shaman?
He has to be chosen by a tribe's chieftain. You see, magical talent is a lot rarer among orcs than it is among humans or elves. In my tribe, there was only me and Rain. We both discovered our talent by chance. I, when I was 9, and put out a fire that had broken out in my family's hut. Everybody was asleep. Even the damn fool that had been tasked to stand guard. When I woke up, the entire room was in flames.
So it was your magic that woke you?
No. I needed to take a piss.
Makes sense. What happened then?
I panicked and started screaming, as every child would have. However, the only thing that did was make me inhale the fumes even quicker. My vision blurred and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I was on a bed of hay in the village shaman's tent, and everybody was staring at me, as if I was Zarek incarnate. I asked what happened and they told me. Just when I had lost consciousness, it had started to rain. Not just a little. It was a full-fledged storm, a deluge from the skies. With not even a minute, all the tents in the village had been flooded. The fire wasn't extinguished right away, but was quickly put out by the other orcs that had been awoken by the storm.
That's impressive.
Well, it was also my last successful weather ritual. If it hadn't been, Barker Gore would be all meadows and forests by now. According to my brothers, I had an orange shimmer in my eyes, and was muttering strange words when they took me to the shaman. She told me that was a clear sign that I was gifted, and that I had fire in my blood, as my tribe likes to say. Of course, it changed my life entirely. All of a sudden, I was my calf's pride. It was strange, not just for me, but also for my kin.
How did your family take it?
Well, they were proud. But they also weren't sure how to treat me anymore. For example, my father stopped taking me out on the hunt because he was afraid that something might happen. Which is ridiculous, shaman or not. An orc who can't wield a spear isn't an orc at all. Also, my siblings became withdrawn. Jealousy, of course, but also estrangement. All of a sudden, their baby brother had become this strange being, which had apparently been bitten by Zarek himself.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Don't be dramatic. There's worse fates than being the one gifted orc among thousands.
Who trained you? The healer?
Yes, but only about her craft. Primitive ghost callings, alchemy, medicine. I learned my magic from an elder who lived in a tiny shack a 15-mile march from our village. I woke up every day before dawn, walked for 2 hours, served him, and received my lessons. Then returned to my cow shortly before midnight. It was hard, yes, but it was insightful. Those long walks in the darkness, the solitude at the foot of the mountain where his shack was, they shaped me.
Interesting. And who is this Rain you mentioned earlier?
Did I? Well, that's complicated. I don't want to talk about it.
All right. Regarding this Rain...
No, Tahar. Accept it.
Will do. Now would you look at that?
Tahar, may I help you with something?
What exactly is it that fascinates you about the Shapers?
Oh, Tahar, that's quite a topic. I don't mind sharing, but are you sure you want to go there?
If that's the case...
No hard feelings. Time's of the essence, isn't it?
I'd still like to know more about how you ended up in Nortander.
Bugger and blast. And here I was hoping you'd forgotten. Alright, I'll tell you. But only under one condition.
Yes?
That I get to ask you a personal question too.
Then we have a deal. Go ahead, I'm listening.
Fair enough. I was born in the Windwall Mountains.
You don't say.
Sorry, still sorting out my thoughts. It's been a long time since I last told this story to anyone. Alright, one more time. As you can imagine, I was born in Windwall, a child of the rocks.
Come again?
A true dwarf, as some would say. Born in the buried city, not on the outside as the traders and farmers are. My family was quite privileged. Not nobility, but my mother and father led a big smeltery which supplied one of the finest smithies. Moonsilver weaponry. Ever heard of it?
I think so. The commanders of the Royal Army use them.
Figures. Well, my childhood was a rather unremarkable one. I had 2 brothers and a sister, and even though I was the oldest child, I was always the most quiet one. I learned quickly how to wield an axe, and I still know how to do it, but I never took pleasure in it. The same goes for my parents' craft. For some reason, Nihalf had given me a talent for metallurgy, but not the desire to use it. Instead, my biggest love was always made with ink. Books.
But I assume your parents didn't approve of that.
Oh no, they didn't mind. I had 3 siblings who could do the job as well as I, so the future of our family was secured. On the contrary, they were quite accepting, which wasn't usual amongst dwarves, especially not those in Windwall.
Are the surface dwarfs different?
Depends. There are some who were very open-minded. For example, the traders who get around a lot. On the other hand, there are some who were as ignorant as the Windwallers.
Dwarves are traditionalists, aren't they?
Oh yeah, they are. They love their brawls, they love their ale, and they love their metal crafting. And they never miss a chance to tell the outside world just how much they do.
Well, to be honest, when I think of dwarven culture, that's exactly what comes to my mind.
See? And that's the problem. There's always diversity in every race. There are soft-hearted orcs, there are elves who don't give a damn about the white tree, and there are humans with... well, you get the point. What I'm trying to say is, many dwarves love living these traditions, but there are some like me who just don't fit in. This is one of the reasons why I appreciate you and this group so much, Tahar. Aenir's tools or not, we're all pariahs, in one way or another.
I guess that's true. So, what happened? Why did you leave Windwall?
I'm getting there, Tahar. When I came of age, I found work in the Windwall Library. It sounds more impressive than it is. Basically just 4 blocky granite walls filled with a dozen bookshelves. Nothing compared to the great libraries of Finn and Mere or even Everlight. That time was also when I deepened my knowledge of the Shapers. I devoured all the books there were, and bought whatever writings the merchants brought in. They smiled at me, talked of me as the strange bird, but I didn't care. The more I read, the more spellbound I became. And the more I dreamed of journeying through Io to solve all those mysteries not yet uncovered.
Are there Shaper ruins in the Windwall Mountains?
Hardly. And those that are there are buried beneath miles and miles of rock. Impossible to access without a huge expedition.
Huh. And what kept you from doing just that?
Well, 2 things. First of all, my attachment to my family. Secondly, Gilak.
Gileak?
My, partner.
You had a partner?
Yeah. We met... I'd rather not go into detail too much. Fact is, we lived together for 6 years. He was very dear to me. Let's put it that way.
What are dwarven families like?
Similar to their human counterparts, I believe. Having family and offspring is considered to be very important, especially if you're of noble blood.
But living with someone of the same sex is acceptable?
Well, yes and no. If you do, you don't talk about it, and you should make sure to find yourself a wife or a husband to found a proper family, eventually, and bring new children of stone into the world, even if that family is just a charade. If you don't do that, you're frowned upon. There's even a word for a childless dwarf, man or woman. Galrag, which roughly translates as dusty boulder. Very amusing, I know.
They do have a point, though. For an empire to endure, there needs to be children.
I agree. But I doubt a few people with different desires living a different kind of life pose a threat. There'll always be men who like women and women who like men, and a couple of people whose tastes are different don't change the fact. And once again, the Shapers were different in that regard. As long as you stay within the boundaries of your caste, you can do as you pleased.
I understand. But something happened, didn't it?
Yeah. The Blackstone Rebellion. Ever heard of it?
No.
A coup. A small group of rebels tried to overthrow the royal house. It was bound to fail from the beginning. The rebels were anti-traditionalist and wanted to establish a new order, where it's the people who have the power, not the nobility. Gilak was one of these rebels.
Oh.
Yeah. At first, before the coup, they tried to raise awareness by giving underground speeches. A noble endeavour, but not at all thought through. Most dwarves just don't care about politics as long as they can have their mugs of ale. At first, he didn't ask me to participate, but the more sour things went, the more he started pushing me. At one point, we had a fight, when he asked me to steal money from my family to support the movement. It was terrible. Finally, push came to shove, and he told me of the coup. He knew that despite my occupation, I was a remarkable fighter and Earthshaper, which is why he asked me to fight alongside him. You can make a difference, that's what he said. By Nihalf, he was just so naive. He really thought it would be like in the old legends, a group of courageous dwarves fighting their way to Algrim Castle with me at his side. I just don't... Forgive me. It's strange to talk about it like this.
It's okay. Thank you for trusting me.
Yeah, sure. You can imagine how torn I was. I knew he'd die if the coup took place, but I also knew that I couldn't stop him. When I told him he was mad, he called me a coward, a delusional bookworm, who'd rather spend his whole life dreaming about the past and changing the present. And then he left. The next day, I found him beheaded by a royal guard. They didn't even make it to the castle stairs.
What happened then?
I ran. Not only because I'd rather have died than return to that empty house of ours, but also because they would have arrested me too. Our relationship wasn't a secret, and in their eyes, I was as eccentric as Gilak and his friends. And we all know how dangerous eccentrics are, don't we? I left my family a letter, telling them not to come after me, bought a horse, and rode as far as it would take me before collapsing. That was 9 years ago. I haven't returned ever since.
What about your family? Did you ever hear from them again?
Not directly. Every now and then, I return to a big city to find a dwarf who can tell me about Windwall. But the thought of returning, I don't know. I know it's cruel toward them, but I just don't think I could ever bear setting foot in those cursed stone halls again.
I see. And since then, you've been studying the Shapers?
Yeah. If there really is, as people say, a silver lining to everything, then this would be it. I'm finally doing what I was too afraid to do back in Windwall. I'm living my dream. Though the price I paid for it was high. And you know what, Tahar?
What?
There's a third reason to my fascination with the Shapers I haven't told you about yet. It's Gilak. Stupid as it may sound, there's a part of me who wants to prove him wrong. To show him that the past has value. That it can guide us towards a better world.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing this, Iskrim. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It felt good to talk about it. I didn't expect that. But you're not off the hook yet. The question, remember?
Right. Shoot.
Your past is even more unusual than mine. Growing up with a man like Isamo Tahar as your father? Without a mother? And then the whole thing with the Mage Rebellion? I know you've been through a lot. Now, I was wondering, if you could trade that past you've had for a different one, would you do it?
What kind of a past could I choose? Anything?
Anything.
Honestly, I try not to think too much about the what-ifs. I can't change my past, so it's irrelevant.
Yeah, I guess it is. Either way, pleasure speaking with you. Hope this wasn't too grim for you, but then again, you asked for it. Give me some time now, will you?
Sure. Take care, Iskrim. Let's see.
Tahar, finally! Do you have the stone?
I do. What now? How do we connect it to the Nexus?
Well, I've done a little research on that. It should be pretty straightforward. Give me the stone for a second, please.
Sure.
Thanks. Now, let's see. Whoa!
This is amazing.
What the heck just happened? Was that the stone?
Yeah, it seems like our plan worked. The stones are the power sources of the Nexus.
Not sources, Tahar. They're simply the catalysts. As I said, the energy, all this magic, it comes from someplace else.
Well, I definitely know why the Shapers were so powerful now. If they were able to harness that, I wouldn't want to be their enemy.
Pain.
Pardon?
Rekindling this place. I can feel their thoughts now. At least, some of them.
You mean, the Shaper's thoughts?
Those who connected themselves to this place. The ones who had the power of telepathy. They left an echo, and whatever wiped out the Shapers, it caused pain. Horrible pain.
I see.
Well, fascinating or not, we need to connect our minds to the Nexus to find the source of the bloodburn, right? Can we do that now?
No. It's not strong enough yet.
Well, we knew that already. We need to find the second stone first. Let's head to Everlight and find that archaeologist. He's our best chance of finding that island.